Thanks for tuning in. My name's Andre Servin, and you're listening to Off the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Off the Roost Custom Calls, turkey calls for the serious hunter. Join me and my co-host, Paul Murdahl, as we delve into the world of the wild turkey, covering everything from calling tips and tactics and hunting strategies to the latest equipment available, featuring interviews from special guests and custom call giveaways. We'll do our best to keep you up to date on this obsession we call turkey hunting. We appreciate you joining us. Now let's get on with the show.
Like I've had in the past, and so I always love to go south and start my spring, and it's my favorite actually, but I just don't have the time this year to do it, and got a family vacation planned, so kind of got to watch what I'm doing.
Yeah, save up the time. Yeah,
I drew an Iowa tag, so and I've been kind of saving up preference points with about 4 or 5 buddies, and we've been kind of planning that for a couple of years. And
the Iowa hunt,
the Iowa hunt, yeah. So we all drew that this year, so that'll be my one real big trip. I'm going to do Iowa and Missouri all together, and
nice.
Then maybe get a weekend. My daughters race barrel horses, and our schedule's really busy in April and May, and so if I get a rained out race in May, I'm going to hopefully shoot up to New Jersey for a weekend or something, but they don't have Sunday hunting, so that makes it kind of tough to just do a weekend. So, but yeah, like I said, I got to try to really watch my time off for traveling this year, but like I work from home, so I'll get to hunt every day before work a few hours. So nice. that helps a little bit. So
right. So I guess with that said, being able to hunt every day, is this like I think I know I've seen on your YouTube channel, I think you have some private access nearby.
I have private and public that's pretty close to me.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, I can get on quite a few different properties fairly quickly. I mean, within 40 minutes I can be on just about anything I hunt.
That's awesome.
So seeing that you have, fairly close access to all this land, are you practicing roosting them in the evening or not? Or
I don't roost a whole lot in the evenings. Like I'll go out and look for birds. Like, well, we're predominantly timber ground, so it's not like I can just drive around in fields and see them. Yep. So like right now when the leaves are off, I'll drive around a lot in the evening, like around fly-up time, and try to see birds in trees and stuff. But I listen. Like I went and listened this morning on a piece that I hunt, and heard 3 birds gobbling pretty good. And then I actually, on the way to that spot, I didn't go in super early because I can basically listen from the truck at this spot. And I was driving out the road, and I actually drove right under a gobbler. He was roosted in the tree, and I could see him in the skylight, and I could see his beard and everything. And I just kept on going past him to a high spot, and I was I was going there to listen across this particular holler on this other ridge that I hunt. And I could hear that. I could have heard that bird that I drove under from where I went to listen, but he never even gobbled. So wow. I heard three other birds, and then I saw that one gobbler. So sure. 4 birds in there, but I know of 8 gobblers in there that I have a picture of back in about a month ago.
Okay.
And so they're probably dispersing out that ridge. So that's kind of why I went there to listen to that ridge today. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at weather and kind of going down my list of places that I hunt today, and trying to kind of get a game plan for the next. We open on the 15th, so got about 2 weeks to really listen. And I've been out about every day for a couple weeks now, and we've been really behind. I mean, the birds aren't gobbling. Like I've heard up till today, I'd only heard three birds gobbling. They all gobbled one time each. So just not doing a whole lot of gobbling, which our weather's been really up and down, and has had them kind of messed up a little bit. So which I'm fine. I mean, the longer that they hold off, the better.
Yeah.
So, and like my Iowa trip is the first week of season here. So like, I'm not even really going to get to hunt that much. I'll get to hunt the first 2 days and I'm leaving for Iowa. So
you're doing the first season in Iowa?
Yeah, it's April 17th to like the 21st.
Okay, April 17th. So I think that's their third season.
Yeah, third season is what it is, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do the third season.
Yeah.
The weather's still a little bit wonky, and
you got plans then when you do the Iowa, and then you swing the northern Missouri too. Then,
that's my plan. Yeah, we're actually going to go with an outfitter in Iowa, which is not really the way I like to do things, but like I'm going with several guys that I hunt with, and 2 of them, they live in New York, and we hunted with them there, and one of them's been out there like 6 times, and he's like, yeah, it's an awesome hunt. And so hopefully the hope is, and the plan is, that we'll kill fairly early there, first day or 2, and then I'll be able to go to Missouri, and I'm going to hunt public land there by myself and just sleep in my truck. And
sure,
I'll probably be there for 2 or 3 days, hopefully. So
nice.
Depending on when you're out there, I might see you out there.
Yeah. Well, shoot me a message or something on Instagram, or shoot me your all's phone numbers, and we can stay in touch throughout the spring and stuff.
Yeah. I should be there. It would be that opening Friday through the weekend, probably.
Yeah.
That's what my plans are.
Yeah, I'll be there for, it'll be, their first week through their first weekend. So that's my plan anyway.
Yeah.
Sure. Stay out of my spot. God dang it.
Have you ever done Minnesota?
No, I have not. Wisconsin, Minnesota is on my list, short list to try to get to in the next several years. I talked to Shane Simpson quite a bit. I'm pretty good friends with him, and we were actually supposed to do Wisconsin or Minnesota and Michigan last year, and then my company that I worked for at the time, they got bought out, and so my spring last year was a total wreck. And we were so busy, and I had already drawn the tag for Michigan for like the June hunt, and I ended up not even being able to go and hunt with them because I just got too busy and tied up with work and had to just cancel.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man. If you missed much over, June hunting, it's like, oh man, my favorite part of late season is before it gets cooking hot and before the mosquitoes are just horrid. Yeah. So pretty much that like last 4 or 5 days of the final season, for me, it's like crappy. I'll get out there like in the morning, but come like kind of 10 a.m., oh, I'm getting bit and sweaty and ready to just pack it in, but
yeah, that's kind of the way it gets kind of like that here. It can get like that in our later part of our season, which we don't go that far. We're mid-May. But I mean, if it gets hot real quick, then it can just that last week can be terrible. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I hunted Maine all the way up into the end of May and like early June, and I've had some of that, what you're saying up there, mosquitoes and hot. But for the most part, that trip that we went up there, it rained the whole time, and it just sucked. And so that's just one thing you can't really control with weather. I mean, just hope and pray that you get good weather, especially on the trip.
Yeah,
but I'm finding the AC hasn't been working in my truck for the last couple of years. So I'm finding it's a good motivator to keep me out of the truck and into the woods when it's 80, 90 degrees out.
Yeah, there you go.
Instead of sweating in the truck, I'll just go sweat outside.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think we should kind of go ahead and kind of formally get started. So
I recorded all that, so.
No, yeah, I've been rolling too. I think we're just gonna, smooth right into it. But Zach, why don't you go ahead for the listeners? Just go ahead and tell us about yourself, tell us about your channel and where you're from and all that.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for having me on. I really appreciate the invite and the opportunity, and just to share a little bit and talk turkeys with you guys. So I've been looking forward to it and trying to get it lined up for a while, and finally
Nice.
got it to work out. So anyway, yeah, my name's Zach Lucas. I'm from West Virginia, born and raised. Hunted turkeys my whole life. Well, as long as I could walk and follow my dad in the woods. He wasn't a turkey hunter, but he was a deer hunter and a squirrel hunter. And, he took me, thankfully. I had a dad that would take me when I was young and got me in the woods and got me started. And, I've had this conversation with a lot of people before, and I feel like even though you might not be big enough to carry a weapon in the woods or whatever, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you're learning a lot of really valuable lessons. Then sitting still, moving quiet, how to read the woods and those kinds of things. And so, thankfully my dad took me when I was young and introduced me to the outdoors, and I fell in love with it young. And like I said, he wasn't a turkey hunter. He killed a turkey. I think he's only killed 2 turkeys his whole life. And one of them was with me when I was older, and the other one was with me when I was younger. And but he took me, and we learned together through hunting the birds. And like I said, he didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 9, 8, 9 at the time when we started, and we learned a lot of really valuable lessons from the bird early on. And those lessons stick with me even still today. I reach back and pull from them now and can remember them vividly.
Yeah.
And, so I'm thankful for those lessons. You called my first turkey in when I was 9 with my dad on an old lunchbox call that I still have over there in the cabinet. And I can remember that hunt like it was yesterday. And that kind of is what got me going and got me started and hooked me.
Yeah.
And, from there, I hunted with him for a long time, and I didn't kill my first turkey until I was 16. And I've been doing it hard ever since, pretty much chasing them. And so this will be my 27th spring this year. I'm 35. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a little background on me as a turkey hunter, where I'm from. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Kingdom Connection. We started it out as Grunt, Gobble, and Gills Outdoors, or GGG Outdoors. And then we, long story short, we changed our name to Kingdom Connection because we wanted to go more of a ministry route and do some outreach and stuff, and use turkeys as a platform to share the love of Jesus with people and through the outdoors and things like that. So we changed our name to Kingdom Connection. So on YouTube, it'll be GGG Outdoors / Kingdom Connection. YouTube wouldn't allow us to change the name fully, so we had to do a slash in there. So that's why it's like that. But yeah, you can find us on YouTube. We got predominantly turkey hunts on there, but we do deer hunting sometimes. We do some trapping stuff and some different things like that. But we have Instagram, Facebook, and I'm personally on Instagram and Facebook as well. But I have a couple friends of mine that I do it with, and we just love Jesus and love hunting turkeys, and we just kind of combined them. And we're not out here doing it for any kind of clout or anything like that. We just do it because we love it and like to share it with other people that love it too. So
that's great, man. That's awesome. So I actually, some questions that I have from that stuff is, so you were saying you didn't kill your first turkey until you were 16. I mean, from 9 to 16, was that I take it you just kind of kept going out there until it happened. I almost feel like, I don't know, I would have been slightly discouraged. That's a long time. That's like, what, 10, 11, 12, 13, like 8 years or something like that?
Yeah. Well, like I said, like my dad wasn't a turkey hunter. And so, I can remember when I was about 8, my dad he kind of got bit by the bug a little bit. We had a guy here in our town. When I was growing up, you got to understand, when I was growing up, there wasn't like anybody that I knew that turkey hunted here at all. And if you did know somebody that turkey hunted, it was like they were so secretive, they wouldn't tell you anything anyway. So you might as well not even know they're a turkey hunter. And my dad just happened to be friends with this guy in our town that was a pretty good turkey hunter. And he took my dad. My dad killed a turkey, and he was like bit by the bug a little bit. So the next spring when I was 8, he wanted to take me, and my mom fought him hardcore to not let him take me because she thought it was too dangerous. We're out there calling like turkeys, people get shot every year, that kind of thing. And we had a pretty good piece of private ground at the time. So he told her, he said, look, we'll be the only people on it that we know of. And, it'll be safe and everything. So he took me when I was 8. We started going, like I said, we learned a lot of lessons that year. 9 years old, I went, we messed up a bunch again,
Right.
and then learning as we go.
Learning a lot of what not to do.
Exactly, what not to do. Yeah, I mean, things like, thinking a turkey's farther off, but he's really not. The foliage is thick, and it makes him sound like he's further. We walked right up on him and stuff like that, and we messed up so many that it was like eventually we're going to hit one that we can work. And what's crazy about it is now looking back on the hunt where we actually killed one. We called 4 gobblers, and they were clear across this giant holler that they had to come all the way off the one side, all the way down, cross a main road, cross a field, fly a creek, and walk all the way up the other side to us. And they did it, and we killed it. And like looking back on it, it's like, man, how in the world did that work? but it did, and
right.
And that hunt got me hooked. And so from then, I got to old enough where I was, big enough to carry a gun probably when I was 12. So from like 9 to 12, I just tagged along with him. And then, from 12 to probably 15, I hunted with him, and we just kept messing stuff up and learning. And then finally I was big enough to hunt by myself. And when I was 16, I was actually hunting with a friend of mine. We were hunting together, and I called in 2 turkeys, and I shot one of them, and he shot one of them. So
what other kind of resources did you have available to you other than just you and your dad going out into the woods? Were you picking up magazines or any DVDs or anything like that? Or
that's something that I talk to a lot of guys about on a regular basis. Just the simple fact that the resource library today that people have at their fingertips is unbelievable. You think about, like, just speaking from my personal learning curve, like you said, from 9 to 16, I mean, that's a pretty good learning curve gap right there. And I think today, people just have so much stuff at their fingertips with YouTube and with, everything that's out there for them, that the curve is drastically shortened. What
right.
used to be 5 to 10 years is now, a year or two.
Right.
They can learn so much knowledge. And like my stuff, like whenever I was growing up, you had to really put some serious effort into getting knowledge. I mean, I'd go over to the movie store and rent the DVDs. I'd go buy the DVDs in the spring, and I watched, Night and Hail, Primos. I watched all those things on repeat, like just studying them. I got every magazine, every issue of Turkey and Turkey Hunter magazine, and read it cover to cover, every one that came out. And I went to the library, rented books. I mean, you had to put in serious effort to go and get this knowledge that is now very prevalent
right.
Across the landscape today.
You're going through the same things I was going through at the time, but I was doing it through like my early 20s, because that's about when I started it, and it was at the same time period. So yeah, it was pretty similar. And up around here, you're from West Virginia, and I would think, maybe, but then you said you got the culture down there was pretty secretive. So yeah, I can see where it would be the same.
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't have. I mean, I don't remember when I was growing up knowing any friends or that their families even turkey hunted. It was very, very deer hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, coon hunting, but nobody turkey hunted. And like I said, I knew a handful of guys, looking back on it, that really knew what they were doing and were in fact turkey hunters. But they weren't just spilling knowledge.
Right.
For sure. It's funny you mentioned that, how secret turkey hunting was back then, and the culture and stuff. And I've only lived in Minnesota for maybe 6.5, 7 years or something like that. But, it's something we've touched on before. Like culturally, it's like not necessarily a big turkey state. It's predominantly like a deer state. But the interesting thing about Minnesota is Minnesota's got like secret turkey killers. Like he's one of them, like some of these guys, you don't hear about them. You don't know about them. I mean, same thing, like Shane Simpson's here too, and I've, through like other hunting forums and stuff like that, like Old Gobbler, I've been able to like talk to other guys that live in other parts of the state that they're out there. They've been hunting turkeys as long as Paul and traveling and killing turkeys. And, it's just like, the secrecy of it. So you mentioned West Virginia. Are you familiar at all with Hardy's custom calls?
Some, yeah. I saw that you guys had him on as a guest there a while back. And
yeah.
I've never ran any of Ronnie's calls, but he's been around a long time here. A lot of people like his stuff and run his stuff here in West Virginia, and he's got a good name for himself. So
that's cool. Yeah, he's a good dude, man. He always he actually just kind of reached out to me the other day, just to kind of touch base, and I've always liked that about Ronnie. And he did that before like we ever even spoke or anything like that, and he just wanted to make sure that I liked the call that I got from him, and he wanted to see how it was working throughout the season. And to just call up some random dude who purchased your call at some like mom and pop shop fishing store in Minnesota, like that's some good customer service,
Yeah.
or just good. Somebody who cares,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you make calls, right?
I just build diaphragm calls, and that's just something that it's kind of a personal venture for me. Just personally wanting to be a better caller.
Yeah.
And a little background on that. Like I'm totally self-taught. So, I mean, everything that I know, I learned through the bird or just through, learning myself. And so, I taught myself how to run a mouth call, and I basically taught myself the wrong way. And, so a few years ago, I just wanted to get better as a caller. And so I started talking to Denny Galvis, and I got some of his calls and ran it, and started reaching out to some guys that I trust and know through the turkeys, and they know turkeys and they know turkey calling, and they recommended some things to me, and I started to revamp my calling and basically retrain myself how to call. And the one thing that I really felt has helped me is being able to build my own calls.
Yeah.
And being able to experiment with things and find what works for me, and then build off of that and tweak things. And honestly, like I collect calls too. So I run calls every day, trumpets, pot calls. And I've always done that, but I never ran mouth calls on a daily. And so building calls forced me to run mouth calls on the daily.
Yeah. And
so I can honestly say that is the one thing that's really improved my calling is, I've always listened to real turkeys, and I've always, ran other calls, but building my own calls, being able to know what that call can do and how to tweak that call, and then forcing me to run a call every single day has drastically improved my calling over 3 years. And I've got a long way to go still, because like I said, I had to totally retrain my body and my mind how to force my air and how to control my air and how to, do certain things.
So what were you doing when you first started that's different than what you're doing now?
Well, you hear a lot of these guys that are, have been running calls for a really long time, or a lot of these how-to videos on YouTube or wherever you see your stuff is, you need to huff the call, or you need to pull your air from your diaphragm a lot more. And I was strictly blowing a call, blowing air across the call.
Like a whistle.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just how I taught myself at a young age, just to get a sound. And back then I I didn't know what I was doing. And then you develop habits that are not good habits. And then you have to go back and try to break those habits. And that makes it really hard. So,
Right.
I had to train myself to huff a call, and I had to train myself how to pull that air up from my diaphragm more. So, what worked for me was I built a really, really light call, like all prophylactic call, with a light stretch that I could get a sound out of. And I just started from there, and I started super light and built my capacity up, I guess you could say, in my diaphragm. Because early on, when you're learning to do that, your lungs aren't built up. You don't have that body in there that you can really force a lot of air.
Right.
And then, and you talk to guys like, I'm not going to name drop, but you talk to some of these guys that run these calls on a regular, and they can run these heavy latex calls, or like a 4-reed heavy latex call. And like at the time I was like, man, there's no way, because I could barely get a sound out of a prof call, so, and over time you build your capacity up in your lungs where you can force more air. And that's actually what I've done this year. Is I kind of got to a point with those prof calls where they were so light that I was kind of blowing them out last year at the end of the year. So I kind of noticed it. So this year I've built some calls that have some actual latex in them, instead of all prof. They've got some latex, some 3000.
Give them a little backbone or whatever.
Yeah, to give me a little more beef in my yelp. So
right.
Yeah,
for sure. Are you using Thad's jig, or do you have another jig? Or
no, I use Thad's jig for now. I'm going to buy a press probably this year. We're in the process of building a house and moving again, and so once we get moved and settled, I'm going to have my own office in there, and I'm going to build a section to build calls on, and I'm going to get a press, a big press.
Yeah, I want one of those too. I currently have the jig at the moment, but what I'm looking for is getting that precise back stretch and the back tension. So a press it is. But in the meantime, for right now, and like you were saying, just to like experiment with those things and fine tune them and figure out a little thing that kind of works for you.
Right.
It's been working out well. So here's one thing I want to do. There's something new I'm going to start doing. I know I spoke to Paul about this. So I've decided in these episodes, I'm going to start throwing out a little joke question sequence. I was supposed to do this at the very beginning, but we're going to throw it in there now. All right. So here's the joke. All right. So you go hunting with a guy, right? Maybe you know this guy from some sort of event or church or something like that. And the guy's like, yeah, I hunt turkeys, but he's just not hunting turkeys the way you're hunting turkeys. And he'd like to go hunting with a guy that really knows what he's doing. So you're like, all right, cool, man. We'll take you. We're going to go. We're going to do this. So you take him to one of your spots. You even went out, you roosted a bird for him. You guys are set up. He shoots it right off the roost. You guys both run over there. He's super excited. The first thing that he says is like, man, I normally shoot jakes. Thanks for helping me get my first thunder chicken. So, does your opinion on that guy change immediately? And will you ever go hunting with him again?
Oh, gosh. Well, one, I hate the term thunder chicken.
That's why I'm mentioning it.
And yeah. So no, I mean, I know guys, and I hunt with guys that call them that, but I give them a hard time about it for sure. And no, I mean, I had this conversation with a guy the other day. Like, I feel like everybody now is just, I mean, everything is so serious. Like, everybody is just they get so up in arms about everything.
Yeah.
And, turkey hunting especially, which everybody's opinionated about everything, but turkey hunting, you can get these little segregations of people that, man, if you don't do it this way, that's the wrong way or whatever. I mean, and there's a lot of ways that maybe I don't necessarily agree with it, but I mean, if it's legal and that's how you want to do it, it's your tag, whatever, be happy. I didn't pay for your tag. So, I mean, if you feel it and you're happy, whatever. But no, I mean, I'm not going to discount or write off a guy because he's uneducated and calls it a thunder chicken and wants to act that way. But that's to each his own. You know what I mean? But
what if he's been doing it a while and he still calls them thunder chickens?
Well, then me and him are just not on the same page, I guess.
Gotcha.
But no, I mean, on that line of thinking, I mean, I have kind of personally over the years made it a goal of mine to take a new person every year.
Yeah.
Whether that be a kid or an adult that just maybe doesn't have anybody to take them. So I want to take people and show them what I feel is the right way to do it, and then let them form their own opinion on it. And, I've been pretty successful in doing that over the years and taking new people, whether it be kids or adults. And, we've killed birds and we've had good hunts where we were really close to killing. And I've got a lot of people, pretty much everybody that I've taken has taken onto it and has wanted to continue to go. So, okay. That's kind of been a personal, like I said, a personal thing of mine is to try to take somebody new every year and just, let them enjoy the sport in the spring like I enjoy the sport in the spring. So, for sure. And like, going back to like my upbringing with my dad and stuff, like fortunately I was, I had a dad that took me. Not everybody has that. And not everybody is spoiled to kill one when they're, real young or whatever. I mean, my kids, my oldest daughter, she's killed 3 already and she's only 16, but she killed them when she was 9, 10, and 11. Yeah. So, I mean, just everybody's upbringing is different. Everybody's, education of the sport is a little different. So you kind of have to handle all that with kid gloves. And, when you do take somebody new, like kind of going back to your joke now, when you do take somebody new, you kind of have to, treat them like as if they don't know anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like, even though they might be a grown adult and they might have, deer hunted for 20 years, I mean, turkey hunting is a whole different ball game than deer hunting. And you can't just take somebody in the woods and expect them to know what they're doing just because they've deer hunted or whatever. So I mean,
because they sat in their box blind for 20 years.
Sure. Yeah. It's a totally different game. Yeah. It's a totally different game. So, I mean, you can't ever assume anything. You can't ever assume that they know, I mean, most people don't know what, spitting and drumming is, or they just don't have the instincts that you have as a turkey hunter that's, been doing it for years. Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of have to, like I said, you kind of have to handle that with kids' gloves and try to teach them the best that you can in respect.
Yeah. Even just being able to identify something as simple as turkey scratching, from, oh no, that's just a squirrel digging around, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Well, you brought up the guy's been deer hunting 20 years. So I'm going to add to the guy that you took out and said he normally shoots jakes. Thanks for helping him get his first thunder chicken. This was his first roost hunt. You guys got close. You're at about 80 yards. And the first thing he whispers to you is, I think he's going to wind us. I think he's going to smell us. That's the first thing that came to my head, man. Because I've had some friends that, deer hunt, and I'm just telling them about, my hunt of that morning or whatever. And they're like, yeah, you got to keep an eye on that wind too, and I don't want to get into it with them. I'm just kind of like, yep,
Yeah.
Oh man.
You never know what you're going to hear. I mean, that's for sure. I've heard a lot of funny stuff taking new people out, and but like I said, just try to be respectful of people and not make them feel like they're an idiot.
Yeah.
And, even though you might think in the back of your head, man alive, like really, but, be respectful. And like I said, don't get, I think everybody needs to take a chill pill sometimes, because I think everybody anymore, it seems like everybody gets offended about everything, and everybody's so up in arms about it if you shot it over a decoy or a lesser hunter or whatever. I mean, so, just do your own thing, be happy, and enjoy the spring, and enjoy every morning that God gives you, really.
For sure. Cool, man. So I know you kind of mentioned it, kind of, at least I imagine that's what you were going to be alluding to, but I guess, what's it like being friends with the best turkey caller in the world?
Yeah. It's humbling.
Yeah.
Matt's a really, really good dude. Really good dude. A lot of people know him just as the best caller on the planet, but I'm fortunate that I do have a pretty good personal relationship with him. I talk to him on a pretty regular basis. I actually talked to him this morning, and he's just like any of us. He's just a normal guy that loves turkeys, and I mean, he works his tail off. And people, jealousy abounds. When you're successful, especially, jealousy abounds, and that's with anybody or anything. I'm not just saying that people are jealous of him, but the work that guy puts into everything to perfect his craft is unbelievable, and being able to reach out to him as a resource is an amazing thing, really.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I said, I grew up. I watched Mad when he was part of Mad and the juries and all that. I mean, I can remember, I probably got the VHS tapes that Mom and Dad still, that with him on them, when him and Billy Argus were making those calls, the series of calls that they built for them. And, really, I mean, he was somebody that I really looked up to in the industry, and, never really imagined that I would, be friends with him like I am and get to hunt with him like I do. That was kind of really
that's pretty awesome. That's amazing.
Really a random thing. I mean, I bought a bunch of, like I said, I collect calls, so I buy calls from a lot of the best call builders across the country, and I'm really good friends with a lot of them. And, I've got to hunt with several of them at this point, but, kind of built that relationship with Matt kind of the same way. I bought a bunch of calls off of him and talked to him over the years, just as a customer, basically.
Yeah.
And then, he's not very far from me. He's just in PA. So, he's like 3 hours away or 3.5 hours away. So it's still a pretty good little drive, but, he might actually be farther than that. He might be like 5 hours. But, anyway, he last year, just kind of out of the blue, randomly, he messaged me and was like, "Hey, let's get together for a hunt." And I said, "Buddy, if you want to come and hunt, you tell me when, and the door's wide open." So
when should I meet you at the gate?
Exactly. So we got it lined up, and he actually made the drive down. And I wish we would have had better weather the day that he came, because we would have 100% killed, because we heard 6 or 7 gobblers, but it was just one of those dreary, cloudy days with a little bit of breeze. And and he even makes a comment in the video that this is not the typical day where you hear a lot of gobbling.
Yeah.
And we managed to get on a few turkeys, and we crossed a giant holler on this turkey that was gobbling really good. And by the time we got over there, he had shut up and we couldn't find him again. And, just shows you, I mean, turkeys are going to be turkeys. And I swear Matt has feathers under his shirt, but, sometimes even the best in the world, it's just one of them days where they just don't want to do it, and it makes it really difficult. And, just so happens the next day we had incredible weather, and I had a buddy in from Mississippi, and he killed, and then the next day I killed. So it's just like, it's, y'all know how it is with the weather. I mean, the weather can totally dictate, how the day goes, and some days are more of a grind than others, and just happened to be one of those grinded out kind of days. But yeah, I mean, he's become a really good friend, and I talked to him, like I said, on a really regular basis, and got to go down to Nashville and watch him call again this year and spend some time with him down there. And to see him in the zone down there, I mean, actually probably 2 months before Nashville, he just basically cuts off from the world.
Yeah.
And he gets in this place
where he's just he's in a zone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then he goes to Nashville, and he's not down there to meet and greet and shake hands and make friends and all that. I mean, he's nice, like I said, and he's friendly, but he's there for one thing and one thing only.
Yeah.
And he goes there, and he's all business.
For sure.
So, and you have to respect that from him. And some people look at that and they think, man, he is a jerk or whatever. But, man, you just have to understand the process, understand the work that he's put in to get to that point, and understand that that's his goal and that's why he's there, and, just let him go do his thing. So,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I talk to him on the regular. I send sound files to him quite often, and he's helped me a lot with calling and call building and just with getting the sound that I want. So yeah, it's a great resource that's very humbling to me, like I said, because I never in a million years imagined, growing up that I would have that.
When you were hunting around that with Matt that day, that would be, Matt, typical for what you're hunting around your place at West Virginia. Is it really mountainous, or say that deep holler that you went through with 200, 300 foot, down and up the other side, or was it quite a bit bigger than that?
It was bigger than that.
Bigger than that. So now when you're hunting, areas like that, I'm kind of familiar. I mean, I guess 200, 300, 400, 500 feet would be about the length of the height of some of the bluffs in some of the areas that I hunt in Georgia. When you're hunting in them areas, it seemed like when you guys were locating gobblers, were they generally hanging near the top or somewhere near to the top, or where do you find them generally? And do you find them 3/4 of the way over? Are they hanging in the hollers? Is it weather dependent? Can you go through that for us a little bit? I'm curious. So.
Yeah, there's a lot we can dive into there. Yeah, that's very typical of the ground that I hunt. I hunt mountains like that. That particular piece of ground is one of my buddy's properties that he has access to, and we've killed several turkeys in there. We actually have a couple videos on the channel hunting that property, and that's the hard property to hunt because it is so big, and you'll get birds that are across these big hollers, and you've got to go either straight down and straight up to them, or you have to go way out around to get to them, which takes a lot longer. Either way, both ways are going to take you some time and some serious effort to get to them. But it seems like some of those times you'll chase your tail more than you like to, because you'll go and you'll make a move, and then by the time you got over there, he's back over there where you called. So I mean, sometimes you got to just play the patience game. I've had him pitch across hollers. I've had him walk straight down and up another side of a deep holler when you don't think that they'll do that. So you just kind of got to check their mood and kind of see what you want to do that day. But right. But yeah, like I think it's definitely weather dependent. If you get a day or a night that's going to be pretty windy, they're going to definitely roost a lot lower. They're going to be down in the bottoms in the holler. But if majority of the time, they're going to be on the top third probably of the mountain. A lot of them will roost around the sides of knobs or on the end of points and stuff, and on hillsides. But yeah, I mean, that's all weather dependent, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty typical. You said Georgia. If you've hunted like North Georgia, it's very, very similar to what I'm hunting here. Okay.
So that one hunt that you have on your YouTube channel with Matt Van Cise, is that the only time you've hunted with Matt, or have you gone out with him before?
Yeah, that's the first time I've got to hunt with him. Like I said, our relationship has been formed over several years, strictly, call builder to customer.
Yeah. Okay.
And then in the last year or two, it's become more of a friendship and talking on a regular. And then, like I said, he reached out last year and we did a hunt, and unfortunately only had one day to hunt. And but we've already talked about getting back together this year and either here or there or somewhere. So we'll be doing that on a pretty regular, I think, from here on out. And, and hopefully, like, I've got some mutual friends that are his mutual friends too, that are up in the Northeast. And I've actually hunted with a couple of them. Probably 2 years ago, I was in New York and killed there, and then was going to go up and do Vermont and Maine. and got a buddy up there in Vermont, Morgan Govea. I've been really good friends with him for years, and him and Matt are really good friends. And Matt was actually up there hunting with Morgan. And by the time I killed in New York and tagged and got out of there, Matt had already killed in Vermont and was heading back to PA. So our paths just kind of crossed because we were supposed to get together and hunt up there. But then he tagged out the same morning as I did, and he left and I was coming. So it just didn't work out. So like I said, it's kind of been in the works for a few years, but finally made it happen last year. And then like I said, going forward, I think it'll definitely be more on a regular, either here or PA or up north or something.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is I'm curious, and I wanted to hear from somebody who was there, but like seeing it from their point of view versus the person who's actually hunting. If the birds reacted different to Matt's calling than, say, if you were calling or somebody else who's not at his level, I was curious to see how fooled and convinced some of these birds were, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that realism kills turkeys. There's no doubt about it. You know, I've found, you know, just personally that, you know, as I've progressed as a caller and gotten better and added more realism and inflection in my calling, that it has definitely been a factor. That being said, I don't think that calling is as important as maybe some people say it is, as far as, you know, killing, because some hunts don't really matter at all. Woodsmanship are very important and other factors, but yeah, definitely realism is going to tip the odds in your favor a little bit as far as talking and having a conversation with a bird. Mm-hmm. But like that day was probably not a good example.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it was nasty, overcast, breezy kind of day. And I mean, we struck birds and they gobbled at Matt, but you know, they weren't like ready to just run us over or anything like that. So I think just finding the bird in the right mood too is a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's a little comforting for me to know that even someone like Matt can go out there and even, because that's the equivalent of basically having a human hen with you, and the birds are still like, nah, you come over here if you want.
Right. Well, like in the video, it was funny because we were kind of getting our teeth kicked in that day a little bit and kind of playing the run around with a couple of birds that had been gobbling. And man, we had been in all kinds of turkey signs, so we knew we were around turkeys. And I told him, I said, man, you know, it's a rough day when the best in the world can't make them gobble. And he laughed and he said, we're only hunting for the right 5 minutes. I mean, and that's true. You know, I mean, that's the beauty of turkey hunting, is it can turn around in an instant, you know, on a dime. If you've been doing it long enough, you know that you can go from least to the best in no time. And, so, yeah, I mean, and we actually found a turkey right after that. But like I said, he was way across a big holler and it just didn't work out. By the time we got to him, he was done. But yeah, I mean, turkeys are going to be turkeys, you know.
I was going to ask, man, so I know you right now, I think you're using the Mr. Fox vest. How do you like that vest?
I love that vest. It's more than a vest to me. You know, it's one of those things that I'm going to pass down to my kids or my grandkids one day. And it's a symbol. I mean, it's more of a symbol to, you know, turkey hunting as a culture and as a cult, you know, and it was one of those things that I really wanted to get my hands on. And you know, it's important to me, you know, personally.
Did you have to wait in line for it, or how did you get your hands on it?
Well, I'm blessed and fortunate that I have, you know, good friends and good relationships that I've made through turkeys. And, you know, just speaking on that real quick, you know, I've said this many times, but I don't know of very many other things in life like turkeys that you can meet people, you know, like not even really meet people, meet them on Old Gobbler, meet them on Facebook, meet them on Instagram, talk to them, maybe talk to them on the phone once or twice, and then drive clear across the country and meet him at a gate and say, let's go kill a turkey. Because I've done it.
Right.
I've gone and stayed in people's horse trailers. I've stayed in their houses. I've stayed in their yards. I've done those things. And those are things that I don't feel like a lot of other things can do. And, you just don't have that. A lot of times I can talk to somebody and in the first 10 minutes I'll know if they're going to click with me or not.
A general overall camaraderie, I guess.
Right, exactly. And so on that realm, like I said, I've been able to, through the wild turkey, I've formed these really great relationships with people across the country, and they've become really, really close friends of mine.
Yeah.
And not just people that I talk to during turkey season. I mean, I talk to them all year round about their families and about everything in life, not just about turkeys, and so last year was the first year I was actually going to get to go to the convention, and I was really pumped up. And of course, that was the Fox Fest release and all that. And it came out really late that they were going to do, the release, how they did the release. And so I got a hold of one of my really good friends down there, Timothy Oldham, that builds the really decorative calls and wins every year. And me and Tim are really good friends. And see, he was going to get a Fox Vest too, and I said, "Well, do you think you get one for me?" Because I was trying to find somebody that was going to be there that could get me one, and because I knew by the time I got down there, because I wasn't going to get there until Friday, and so I didn't know, if there would be any left or if I would even get there in time to do it or whatever. So Tim said, "Yeah, I'm going to get one, but I'll have my wife stand in line for you and get yours." So that was our original plan. And so then, like late on Wednesday night, they released the details about, this is what's going to happen kind of thing. And there was already people in line down there, like sleeping in line.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm texting Tim, like, what are we going to do? Like, is your wife going to get up at 3 a.m. and go stand in line? Like, I don't want her to have to do that and all this stuff, So I never even heard from him. I never heard back from him. And I'm sitting at home and I'm just like panicking. And so the next morning he texts me, and he texts me a picture of the vest, or of the card with the number on it. And actually first thing he texted me was bad news. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I was going to throw up. And then he texted me a picture with the number on it, and he said, "You got an odd number." And I was like, "You dirty dog! You about made me throw up." Well, so then he was texting me throughout the day, and he texted me the picture of the box in his room and all this stuff, and that he had it, and he was like, "It's here for you. Just get with me when you get here." Blah blah blah. So I go there to pick it up the next day, and I was like, I got it from him and hugged him and thanked him and everything. And I was like, "So what number did you get?" And he was like, "I didn't get one." And I was like, "What? Like, that wasn't the plan. Like, you were supposed to get one and I was supposed to get one." He was like, "Yeah, but my wife wasn't going to go." And he said, "So I just got yours because I had
That's a
already
real
promised
friend,
you."
dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I love Paul, but I would have been like, "Hey, dude, only I could. There was only room for one, man, and."
Yeah,
you had to stand in line. It was this whole thing.
I would have made my wife stand in line for you.
Oh.
Listen, I was out. That's another one of those instances where I was just very humbled and very, very appreciative and thankful. He was a great friend, and he told me, he said, "I gave you my word I'd get it for you," and that's what I did. And I told him, I said, "I can never repay you, but I'll do everything I can to
maybe
repay
you can
you."
share it, like he could use it one season, you'll use it the next, just go back and forth.
Yeah. He ended up getting one of the unnumbered ones, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, so I have a numbered one, and I actually bought two of the unnumbered ones for both my girls, and they're in the packaging, and
cool.
They're more so for their kids or my grandkids one day, and then mine will be passed down.
And so did
whoever.
So I know they were selling them at the convention, and I think they were only selling like 200 or something like that, right? Yeah. And then after that, they were selling them at their main store in Mississippi. I think they did that twice.
Twice, yeah.
And then I think they went online, and it was a limited amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you scooped up some of the ones from online, right?
Yeah, I actually had a numbered one in my cart to check out, and then the website crashed. and then I ended up getting 2 of the numbered or the unnumbered ones before they sold out, like right before they sold out online. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Is it it looks kind of heavy? Heavy? Is it heavy?
it's heavy, yeah.
Yeah.
I've hunted in the grounded vest for the last several years before that, and I'm really good friends with Drew Abel, that's the owner of Grounded, and he's always been a good friend of mine. And they're a Christian-based company as well, so me and him have been good friends through that. And he actually,
I guess
reached
hence
out.
the name Grounded, right?
Right. Hence the name Grounded. Yeah. So when they were formulating the company before it had even released, like Drew had told me that they were going to do it and come out with it, and their first thing was going to be a turkey vest. And he said, "I'm going to send you one," and I paid for it. I paid full price for it. And he said, "I'm going to send. I want you to get one, and give me your honest opinion on it, and maybe do a review or something." And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I got it, and I did a review on it on YouTube, and then for them, just so it would be out there. One of the first reviews that was done on the vest, actually. And then I hunted in it for 2 years, and I still have it, and I still hunt in it some. But yeah, last year I predominantly hunted in the fox vest just because, and I killed the first turkey in it in Mississippi, and I felt like that was, that was right. It felt right. And I'm not going to hunt in that fox vest if it's inclement weather or anything. I'm going to try to keep it in pretty good shape, so I'll go and hunt in my grounded vest. But yeah, it's significantly heavier than the grounded vest is.
Well, I know the company that did all the leather work for them, they they create some beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And, all that stuff looks like really high quality, which is why I think that vest was like $400 or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the company Moonshine Leather is who did the original design, and then they didn't make the vests.
Mm-hmm.
They outsourced that because they just couldn't take it on.
Yeah.
Because I think Moonshine's basically just one man doing most of that stuff. But
maybe they did like a prototype or the first one.
He did the prototype. Yeah, he did the prototype design, and then they based the design off of that. And it's very, very high quality, very well made. It'll hold together and stand the test of time. That's for sure.
So, you mentioned the grounded vest. I've actually personally have always been interested in that vest. How do you like the grounded vest, and how's the seat cushion, I guess, on both the vests? Because I'm always chasing a good seat cushion.
Yeah. Both cushions on both the vests are very nice, very thick. The fox vest, it goes on with buckles, and they have strategically placed buckles high and on the sides, so you can kind of configure that. Whenever I'm not hunting, I strap it high, but when I'm hunting, I'll make sure that I hook it on the side where I can reach it quicker to deploy my seat. The seat on the grounded vest is held on by a really, really strong magnet, and it's really strong. You have to pull on it to get it to come off, which is good. I don't like a seat that's going to constantly flop off.
No, it's annoying.
Yeah. So, but yeah, actually, the first vest I had, I tore the seat off of it crossing a barbed wire fence.
Wow.
And I didn't even really know about it until I got halfway around the hill, and then I went back and got it, and I texted Drew and I said, "Hey, I need a new seat or something, because my seat got tore off and it's all tore up." And that was probably my favorite part of the vest. And he sent me a brand new one, brand new seat and it just clips on at the bottom with a little buckle, and then it holds on at the top with the magnet. But yeah, I love the vest. I'm a really big fan of a strap style vest. I don't like a true vest because it's just too much material up here and it makes me too hot.
Yeah.
So I'm a really big fan of like a strap style vest, like a Bob Dixon or whatever. So yeah, the grounded is a strap style vest. The Fox is too. Just lets your top breathe a lot better, I feel like. More maneuverability. But I very rarely set to a turkey with a vest on. Like I always, if I have time, I'll sit down and pull my straps off, and I'll just have my seat underneath me and the back against my back. But very rarely do I leave my straps on my shoulders when I'm sitting to a turkey. That's just something that I do. I feel like I can move a little bit better and maneuver a little bit better without those straps hindering me.
Yeah, if I got the time, I will unbuckle my vest for, like you were saying, so there's no hindrance in mobility. But if it's one of those times where you got to sit down right now, then I'm sitting down right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I see you use a trumpet too.
Yeah, I use a trumpet a lot now. I feel like it was a pretty well kept secret until pretty recently, probably when Dave started using it on YouTube and people started kind of saying like, what in the world is that thing? Kind of got a little bit of popularity. And that's honestly probably when I started kind of looking into them a little bit more. But the turning point for me is when I went and hunted in the South with some people that were using them and that were proficient with them. And I saw the effectiveness of it. Mm-hmm. That for me was when I was like, yeah, I gotta figure this thing out, because I know nobody up here was running one at the time. And so I got a couple, and I'm really, really good friends with Clay Townsend, who just so happens to be one of the best trumpet builders on the planet and has won the Turpin. And I'm really good friends with him. And I know it probably sounds like I'm name dropping, but like I really am friends with these guys, and I'm not name dropping. They're just my friends. And so Clay built me a couple trumpets, and I've got several of his now that I hunt with regularly. But it took me a long time to figure out how to run one, honestly, to where I felt like confident that I could use one. Yeah. And not even to the level that I felt proficient with one, just to the level that I could make a turkey sound out of one. It took me a long time, because it's just very different than, everything else you're blowing on. This one, there's a suction call, you're sucking in on. It's just a different control and everything. So it took me a while to get proficient with it. And
I would imagine, though, having relearned your diaphragm calling, it probably helped you just doing the same thing in reverse. Whereas if, you were trying to blow on the trumpet, you would be, just using your mouth instead of, using your diaphragm to control the air better.
Right. Yeah. I would say, it did help, but I got, just got my hands on some really good ones and practiced a lot. Like I said, I run calls every day, probably an hour to 2 hours a day. Switching calls a lot and running a lot of different stuff. But yeah, then I hunted with guys in the South and saw them run them and killed some turkeys with them, and killed some turkeys with guys running them. And then I started running them and saw the effectiveness of striking birds with them and even working birds with them. And yeah, I won't hunt without one now.
Cool. I like that, man. That's that's a little bit of what intrigued me to, I went with the wing bone instead of a trumpet, but just having that different sound, man, having that different sound that I don't think a lot of people are using, especially, on state land. I feel a lot of guys are either cranking away on a box call, maybe there's a guy with the slate, and then you're going to find the mouth calls, but people running trumpets or wing bones, I think it's going to be a new sound that the birds aren't necessarily used to. So I was going to ask you, and it sounds like you already answered that question, but just I was going to ask if you saw the difference in the bird's behavior with the trumpet, but it sounds like you were saying, you've been having great results with the trumpet.
Yeah, I've had birds that haven't hit anything, and then you start hitting them with a trumpet and they'll start really cranking. Damn. And honestly, I think it's just a different frequency to them, and I used to be the guy that had 4 different surfaces of pot calls in my vest and 5 different strikers. And I always would say, well, I just carry all this stuff because I don't know what they're going to want on a certain day. Well, anymore, I carry 1 pot in my vest, and I don't really use it to strike with unless it's just really windy or I need to really reach out somewhere far and I need to get a really high pitch or something. I might have an aluminum or something in my vest, but majority of the birds that I'm calling to or working are with a trumpet or a mouth diaphragm, and that's pretty much it. And there are times, like I was telling a buddy today, because we were talking about hunting without a vest. And I've got to a point, which I'm always going to hunt with a vest, because to me, like, it's just synonymous to turkey hunting. Like, I just have to have a vest. It
Me
just
too.
feels a part of me.
Yeah.
But like, man, I just love, like, some of the best hunts are the hunts where I just throw my leafy on and throw a trumpet around my neck or a diaphragm in my mouth and like go with my gun. And, I've killed several turkeys like that, and I'm confident in those, in a diaphragm, or I'm confident in a trumpet, that's all I need. Like, I can go and kill one with that only. So I very much minimalize what I carry in my vest now. Like, I don't carry a whole lot, and I always have a trumpet around my neck, always have a mouth call in my mouth, and several fresh ones in a pouch. And, I know that that's all I need. But yeah, I think a trumpet, if you learn to use it, it's extremely effective. Just like I said, the frequency of it, I think, is something that just triggers them. Getting
into that, I think from, I don't play trumpet myself, but from listening to all these other guys that you hear, especially when you're getting soft, it's the frequency, but I think it's cleaner too than you get. I think when you get your diaphragms going with all the cuts and stuff, I think there's a lot of noise involved with the yells, where I think that you get the good, turkey sound, but I think it's a cleaner sound that they're probably not used to hearing from a lot of people blowing the diaphragms and whatnot.
Well, and I think that like to our ears, a trumpet, like, up close doesn't sound very good. Like, at a distance, it sounds really good to our ears, but I think a turkey hears it different than we do. They hear it, like you said, maybe a little cleaner or something, because I'll tell you, this is the God's honest truth. I have never seen a call that a hen hates more than a trumpet. Never.
As far as coming in to fight?
Yes. I've never seen a hen respond to a call like they do a trumpet.
Mm-hmm. Well, shoot, man, that makes me want to start practicing with my wing bone, man.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now. Right now, it's I also I don't collect calls to the degree that I'm sure you do, but I do just like enjoy just like collecting calls and stuff, and just letting them kind of stack up, and so right now, I mean, that's kind of what the wing bone call's doing, but it only does it because I haven't given it the time to actually learn how to do it. I know, Paul built me a box call, and it was another one of those things, just needing to have the time to sit there and actually kind of learn how to use the thing. And so, I think I'm gonna start messing around with that wing bone. And so I guess my whole thing is that where I struggle with, and it makes sense that it's a directional call, is there's times like I feel like I'm not cranking on it loud enough, because to me it doesn't sound like it's that loud. But is that the same thing with the trumpet? When you're cranking on it, it doesn't feel like it's loud, but maybe it is loud, just in the direction that it's blowing in, probably, right?
I think it probably depends on the terrain, because like a lot of the stuff that I hunt, like, it rings. I mean, it sounds like it's ringing out through the holler or out through the ridge. If you're hunting like flat stuff, I feel like, like South Carolina, Mississippi, sound doesn't carry there like it does here. Like, for instance, like in South Carolina, when I hunted, it was flat. And I just felt like sound would just go and die, like not even very far at all. Like, it just doesn't have a lot of that was pines too. So you don't have a lot of those hardwood acoustics. So it just doesn't have anything to bounce sound from. And, so it just goes out there. It only carries so far. So I think that some of that might be that terrain based. But I think that, if you use your hands and you cup your hands and you directionalize your hands, you can get different sounds, and you can, force it to sound louder or softer. Certain trumpets can get louder or can't get louder. It's just their internals, the way that they're built. Wing bones are similar. I just think like a trumpet and a wing bone to me don't sound the same. Like, they have a different sound. Like, they have a little bit of the same similarity to them, a little bit of the same ring to them, but I think a trumpet has maybe more of a thump to it.
Okay.
So,
something to consider. One thing I wanted to ask you, just watching your videos, it seems like you know, a lot of the videos is like timber hunts and setup. So let's talk about setup. You know, we you know, we've had some guys on, but we've never really kind of dove into setup. And I know it's more than just picking a nice looking tree and sitting down there. So I guess when it comes to a setup for a timber turkey hunt, what is it that what do you look for? What are some key things that you like?
Yeah, like I said, I mean we're predominantly timber here, so I don't have the beauty of driving around and seeing birds in fields and stuff because we don't have it. We don't have ag. We don't have any of that stuff. I actually saw a map this week that was the map of the United States, and Maine was like 80% timber, and West Virginia was 79. Then they were the top two in the country. So, you know, that's what I cut my teeth on. That's what I predominantly hunt, and that's what I love to hunt. Timber is my thing. So, as far as setup goes, I mean, I think that the more turkeys you sit to, obviously, the better you're going to hone that in and get a feel and an instinct for setup. But, you know, some of the things that I look for is, you know, try to get a good tree for back cover and then try to get some horizontal cover if I can. You know, maybe against a root wall or against a down tree or something. At least have it behind me to kind of break up that outline. And, you know, with me personally, like, I self-film a lot too, so I have not only me sitting on a tree, but I'll have a tripod and a camera a lot of times too. And so, you know, try to get a good setup is pretty crucial because, you know, filming turkeys, especially self-filming turkeys on ground level and as good as they see, I mean, your setup is extremely critical. But I mean, a lot of times we'll try to use a terrain feature to our advantage and put something between us and the turkey that they have to either come around or come over top of to see us. Because, you know, a lot of times you don't want to set up in a wide open bottom where they can see for 100 yards, especially if you're hunting with no decoys, which, I mean, I hunt with decoys some, just depends on the situation, really. I prefer to not hunt with decoys and just strictly play hide and seek in the woods and make them come looking. That's my favorite. So, I mean, in those instances, like I said, I'm going to try to use a bend in a road or, you know, try to call him around the side of the hill where he has to come around to look into that flat or into that bench that I'm calling from. And at that point, he's in gun range. You'll see them, they'll come up the hill and they'll poke their head up, which I hate that. I hate getting in a situation where they periscope you. And if your gun's, you know, not on them right then, you're just totally screwed. So I try not to get in those kind of situations, but sometimes there's no avoiding it.
So, you know what, I've been struggling with the same, you know, something similar in Mississippi and I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of the areas in the national forest that I'm getting into. They're so open and there's no debris whatsoever laying on the ground. So I'm trying to use these terrain just dips and little indentations in the terrain to hide in. And if it'd be great if I could find a log, I'll use that. But I would, you know, last year I was having a lot of problems where I'd be set up and I was using it so that when they'd crest the ridge, they'd be in shooting range. And like you described, I wouldn't even see them periscope. You'd just hear the cluck, cluck.
Yeah.
And it'd just be the one cluck and that would be it. It would be all over. You knew he was just over the rise there 30, 35 yards away, but he had already popped his head up and seen you.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with a bunch of guys over the last several years, and I've been fortunate enough to hunt a lot of that stuff in the South and killed in most of it. And like in our video from Mississippi last year, when I killed my turkey, I was hunting with a buddy of mine named Brock Roberts down there, and he's from there, and he's very familiar with national forest and the ground that we were on. He had found these turkeys, and we went in on them, and they were in a big open creek bottom. It was wide open. And, you know, in the video, you can hear us talking, and we're walking in on this turkey, and he's roosted in this oxbow on the creek. And there's this big, wide open bottom down in there, and we're trying to make our move down in there to where we feel like we can get to kill him. And Brock even says, you know, in here you want to be where you can shoot them. You know, when they pop up and, you know, you see them, you want to be where you can shoot them because you don't want to be we don't want them to be able to see 100 yards out through here because they're just not going to do it. And I think that turkeys in the South, they get this reputation as being like really, really tough. And I do think that there is some validity to that. I think that just the places that they live is a little bit harder to hunt. Like we just said, it's harder to hide in there. It's harder to hide in those open expanses where they can see.
And extremely hard to move around without them picking you off from, just 2 ridges over,
Yes. And I think that plays into it some. I also think that probably there is more really good turkey hunters per capita in the South than there is in any other part of the country. So not only do they have, every Joe Blow hunting them that is maybe novice and they're in there bumping them around, but they also have some really, really good hardcore turkey hunters. Right. Like we were talking earlier, like a lot of people there is more people out here that are really like really good turkey killers than people know. Like you said, like you can find these people on Old Gobbler or wherever, or even on Facebook some now that, and I told some people at the convention this year, I said, some of the best turkey killers in this building, nobody even knows about. And those people are prevalent in the South. So not only are those turkeys getting pressured by novice people that are bumping them around, but they've also got really, really good turkey hunters hunting them. And then they live in really hard terrain to move around in and hide in. So they are tough.
And then I in a lot of the other places I hunt, they've kind of get like a safety zone buffer area when they get out in the private, but like in Mississippi, that buffer zone, that safety zone isn't quite there. They're getting hit pretty hard out on the private land too.
Right. Yeah. There's no retreat for them. They're getting hit.
It's
hit
just
from all sides.
We feel safer out there than we do in here.
Right.
Yeah, you go out on the private, maybe there's 1 to 3 guys hunting them versus anybody allowed on the public. So they'll take their chances with the 3 guys and just avoid the field.
Yeah.
We kind of got into, a little bit with around your neck of the woods. You said they're generally staying, within the upper third of the ridge line. So now your approach, you say you don't roost very often, and I would imagine for your cases, you're probably pretty familiar with all the areas that are going to roost turkeys anyways, and it's just a matter of getting in and checking on them here and there. All right, so they're generally roosted here. You check that roost, it ain't happened. It's like, all right, I got another one down the road, and we might not get to them on roost, but they still should be in the area somewhere. So I would imagine you're generally taking an approach to them. You're trying to get above them and then work your way in to a good listening spot and then going from there.
Yeah. Kind of the way that I approach things is the month before season, if I have good weather, like last year, right after the convention, like we got back, end of February, and we started having really good weather and turkeys started gobbling. So from about the first part of March all the way till season, I was out every week, as many days as I could, dropping into these spots and checking them. And by the end of March, turkeys were really gobbling on the ground good, to where I could go to a roost site and then jump to another spot and still, turkeys still be gobbling because they were gobbling on the ground at that point. So like kind of my approach is I'll try to get in these places where I can listen to an adjacent ridge without being on that ridge to booger those turkeys up. So I don't go to that ridge that they're roosted on, but I'll go to the ridge across the holler and listen across the holler to where I feel like they're going to be. So I'm not going in there and tromping around and boogering them up.
And that's in a roost situation. So now if you're coming in the morning, then how are you going to, so you're going to be over on that ridge then, and how are you going to approach coming into that?
Yeah. So the way that I'll approach that, and so what I was getting at was like, I'll do all that stuff pre-season and I'll find these places where these birds typically roost. And once they have dispersed and they've picked their spring roosting sites or their spring areas where they're going to kind of hang out, that is me finding the ballpark to be in. And then come hunting time, that puts me in the batter's box. That's kind of the way I like to say it. Yep. So, if I'm going to approach, like, for instance, like if I had gone in and I'd listened across the holler to this point and there's turkeys over there and they've been roosting on that point, I want to be on top. I'm always going to try to get to the top. And most of the stuff that I hunt, I don't have the luxury of, driving the ridge out the top real nice or whatever. I'm almost always parking in the bottom and climbing to the top. So, that's just how everything is that I hunt, mostly. So I'm not going to go in straight up that point where that turkey's been. I'm going to go a point over across, around that bowl from him or around that holler from him. I'm going to go up that point, up that spine, and then approach him from above and try to be on his level or above him when he starts gobbling.
I like that, man. So I guess here's another question I have for you since you just brought it up. You said you want to be on his level or above him. I guess my question is, when it comes to his level, is this eye to eye with the turkey or at the base of his tree that he's in? Because that could be a 20-foot difference.
Yeah. I'm going to be like, if there's a turkey that's roosted on a bench down from the top of the ridge, one bench down,
getting set up on the bench. Yeah.
And he's 30 feet up in the tree, so he puts him eye level with the ridge top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to set up on the ridge top.
Okay. Yeah.
It really depends. I mean, if the ridge top's trashy, I'm probably not. I'm going to drop off the side and get on the flat, the bench that his tree is on.
Okay.
At that point, because either he's not going to pitch to the trashy top. He's going to pitch to that pretty bench.
Yeah.
So I think that just comes with, just kind of a lot of, like Paul said, I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm pretty familiar with. I do hunt a lot of stuff that, like, tomorrow I've already got lined up. I'm going to a place to listen that I've never been into before. So, that'll be kind of learn as I go kind of deal. And I do go in and hunt places like that, call it armed scouting. I don't like to go into places until I can hunt them because, like I said, I don't want to go in and booger birds up. I know there's birds there. I'd rather have a gun in my hand and just go in there and kind of learn as I go.
Right.
But, if you go in blind and you go in the dark and you've never been there before, you just have to try to take your best educated guess as to what he's going to do and kind of learn. If you don't kill him that day, learn what he does and go in and kill him the next day, kind of deal. Because you don't know where he's going to decide to pitch if you haven't been in there listening to him prior and kind of have an idea of where he likes to go.
Mm-hmm.
So now you say kill him the next day. So do you find that your flocks are moving quite a bit, changing roost spots from day to day, or are they hanging in an area? So like what I found when I was in Mississippi last week, they'd come into an area, they'd hang out for 2, maybe 3 days, and then they'd move a ridge line over or something. The main flock would, and then they'd hang out there for 2 or 3 days, and then they'd be gone from the area. I wouldn't hardly hear a gobble for 2 days or whatever. Are you finding movement like that, or you think they're hanging pretty tight to a home range?
Most of the time here, once they've picked their area, they tend to stay. But I think that it just goes on a bird by bird basis too. I mean, you get some birds that are nomadic and they like to travel, and you get some birds that are strictly homebodies that don't really want to leave a 100-yard radius roost area. So, you just kind of have to, like, I hunted a bird here last year that I felt like he was really nomadic. Like, he never roosted in the same place. One day he'd be on this side of the holler. The next day he'd be on the opposite side of the holler. The next day he'd be up the holler 300 yards. And, I never could pin him down. And the only way that I could really hunt him, especially hunting him before work where I only have a couple hours, I would have to try to go in there and roost him in the evenings, which I don't put a whole lot of stock into. But with that particular bird, I was trying to go in and listen to him in the evenings where he would fly up, because with me hunting a couple hours before work, if I didn't pick the right side of the holler that he was on, I was out of the ball game. So it was a waste morning for me, essentially, if I go in there blind and I'm on this side and he's on that side, because by the time I would go all the way down and around to him, I'd have to be at work.
Yeah.
So, I think it's on it's on a per bird basis and a per hunt basis, but predominantly, I mean, what we find here is that, you know, once those birds have kind of established their spring areas, they tend to stay very close to those areas. Like last year, we killed birds, you know, late April, early May that I had found in, you know, second week of March, and they were in the same areas.
Sure.
So, but I think that that depends too on states. I mean, like you said, like Mississippi, I mean, those birds, they move around a little bit more through those creek bottoms, and they'll get pushed around.
Well, I'd imagine you're seeing a lot more pressure than what you're seeing in the mountains.
Oh yeah, much more. You know, here, I mean, I might run into a couple guys a spring on public ground. In the places that I've hunted in the South on public, it was an everyday occurrence, multiple people. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, that the pressure is vastly different.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, you kind of have to take all that into consideration. And, you know, the place I hunted in South Carolina, I hunted the first 2 days of their season with a guy down there that he grew up hunting down there. And the first day, or no, it might've been the second day. The first day, I think it was first afternoon, we drove around and counted 57 trucks at the gates.
Right.
And he was like, man, he's like, I swear I've never seen it like this before.
And it could be the case, you know, said like when I hunt northern Minnesota here, it's big woods and they're moving quite a bit, but it may be just the fact that they're not being provided everything in the habitat that they're in, so they got to move around to get it. Whereas, you know, the areas you're hunting, it's all right there. They don't need to go anywhere for much of it.
Yeah. Now I will see birds like in March, you know, kind of right at the tail end of like their fall breakup, like they're in their fall flock and they're starting to break up into spring flocks. I'll see birds in areas, and they'll be feeding on like beech nuts or something, and then they will totally vacate that area, you know, and they will not be back. So, I mean, you'll see that from time to time, just depending on, you know, as things green up, they get different food sources available. Right. So they'll move to a different food source or something. But, you know, if like for here, like I try to look for big long ridges that, you know, they can go and, you know, maybe fall off a finger ridge or something. And like here, for instance, I had pictures of 8 gobblers and then they disappeared. And I was like, well, you know, kind of got on the map and kind of got to looking and was like, I think that they probably went here. And so I went and verified it, and that's where they went. Yep. And so they just fell off the back of the ridge, and they were on out that big long ridge a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty typical. But I mean, during the season, you won't see a whole lot of movement unless they're getting bumped or unless something happens, like, you know, they go in there and start timbering that area and just totally move them around. You won't see them move a whole lot.
Sure.
I had one area, and I was doing the same thing you were doing, where there was a bird that would, so it was on public that butted up to private. They would roost on the public property, and your only chance at that bird, or the bird, it was sometimes 3 of them, was catching them on the way to the private property, because the private property was like an ag field or something like that. So they would go onto the public to roost. And just because of work and all that stuff, I wasn't able to get out there and roost it because this spot was also 2.5 hours away from my house. So it was like, all right, well, I'm not going to be able to go out there and roost birds. So I was kind of doing what you were doing, just kind of rolling the dice based off past experience, thinking, all right, I think he's going to roost here. So I was driving out there. Up here in the Midwest in the late season, the sun starts coming up like really early. So I was leaving my house at like 1 a.m. or something like that, 1:15 in the morning, to drive out there and give myself enough time to sneak in that close to the bird. And yeah, it'd be like the sun would come up and I wouldn't hear anything. And then he gobbles over there and it's like, oh no. And I did this consecutively for it. I dedicated maybe like 2 weeks to this bird. And yeah, man, it was exhausting just doing that. But anyways, the very last day of the season, I was like, you know what, Paul? I'm going to go back out there. I'm going to give it one more try on that bird. And in the dark, as I roll up, that piece of timber that the bird would hang out on, they went in there and just started cutting down a bunch of timber. And it used to be kind of a hidden area because there was nowhere to park your truck. You were just going to have to park, walk a little, and then start climbing the ridge to get there. And now, to get all the trucks and stuff in there, they created a little area for you to pull off and get there. But anyways, it sucked. And
I know which area you're talking about now.
yeah, and so when I first got there, I refused to like accept it. So I still went in there and I still got set up because I left my house at like 1 a.m, man. And I was like, what else am I going to do? I was like, I'm here to hunt this bird. So I went in there and I did it. And, nothing happened. And then once the sun came up, I went and investigated that area. And I was like, oh, man, they just like, in a day, they went in there and just like tore it all up, And
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at now with, like, I'm trying to hit these places that I haven't been in since last spring and checking them to see if anything's changed as far as access or as far as, if they've gone in and cut something or changed something. I actually have 2 areas that I killed birds in last year that they have totally cut. The whole place is gone. And so those birds I don't know where. I haven't gone in there to try to re-find them yet, but I just, in the afternoons and stuff, or in the evenings after work, I've been driving around and checking these places and just looking at access before I vest, a morning into going and listening to these places. So I like to try to get to them before I go a morning to listen to them if I can. But like that was unavoidable. I mean, that happened, it sounds like overnight, which, I mean, you just have that kind of stuff that happens. And that's why you always need to have a, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Z plan.
Z. Yeah.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
So I hunted that bird on like a Thursday or a Friday. It must have been a Thursday. And then me and Paul went after a bird we had roosted on a Friday in a different area. And then the next day I was like, so Saturday, I was like, I'm going back. So on that Friday, me and Paul were hunting somewhere else, was the day they went in there and just tore it all up.
Right.
I guess with that said, man, I'd like to thank you for taking your time and coming on here and having a chat with us. And shoot, man, hopefully we could get you on again sometime and do some more chatting.
Right.
And maybe Paul will run into you in Missouri, and
exactly.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. I like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on, and always like to talk turkey and just give me a shout, keep up with me through the spring, and who knows? I mean, that's kind of where our name Kingdom Connection comes from, and meeting people along the way and sharing experiences with them and forming a connection with them and a bond and a friendship. And like I said, turkeys do that in a really special way. And you can meet somebody that you've never met before and share a hunt with them and form a great friendship and great relationship. So that's, to me, a lot of people, they've got into this traveling thing, and we didn't even touch on that, but like I'm not per se chasing the super slam or whatever. I'm just doing it for experiences, for making friendships, and the way, some people want to go about it and do it all alone with no help, or with, kind of do their own way, and to each their own. But kind of my way that I've kind of approached it is I love meeting people in these states and hunting with them. And like in Mississippi last year, I mean, I killed in the first 30 minutes, but I stayed there for 5 days and hunted with, 3 or 4 friends down there that I had made, and that made the trip.
Yeah.
So, I mean, getting to meet these people and hunt with them has been the most joy for me, and being able to just slow down and experience these states instead of killing and moving on to the next as quick as I can. So, that is essentially in a nutshell what Kingdom Connection is, and why I do what I do, and meet people and form relationships and form friendships. And, like I said, thank you guys for having me, and
hopefully we've formed a connection tonight and a friendship, and we'll stay in touch. And who knows, down the road we might share a tree together somewhere.
Thank you for listening to the Off the Roost podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, or whatever it is we're supposed to do. We greatly appreciate it. You can also follow us on Instagram at Off the Roost Calls and TikTok at Off the Roost Pod. Stay tuned for future episodes where we'll do our best to keep you informed and try to preserve the heritage that surrounds the elusive and sometimes mystical animal that is the wild turkey.